This is Building a Creative Life. I'm Pam Vale, a New England artist, bringing the world of creativity to your door through casual conversations with artists, creators, and everyday people, helping curious, midlife women begin their next creative chapter. I'm glad you're here. Let's get started. Today, Nicola Farnhill and I move through ideas of success, but not in the way it's usually defined. This is more about how it feels, how it changes over time, and how much of it is influenced by what we've been taught to value. We talk about self-connection, balance, and creative flow. Stay with us through the end, where I'll share a few reflections on what I noticed in this conversation. Well, welcome, Nicola. I am so happy to see you. We've been trying to get together for a little while, and the beginning of this year has been a little busy for both of us in good ways and reflective ways. So I am excited to talk to you, and welcome to the show.
Thank you, Pam. It's wonderful to be here, as always. And as you say, I'm so excited that we've been able to get together finally, because as you said, there's been lots going on. I'm sure people, when they listen to this, will agree completely. This first half of the year has been quite something.
And it's weird for you to say like this first half of the year because we're like coming up on that so quickly.
I know.
It's insane. So we're gonna I love that, you and I usually get to like dig into a topic, and the topic that we're going to talk about today is actually really personal to me because it's something that I'm learning. I don't know, I'm learning to reflect on, I'm learning to sort of explore, and the topic is um, the meaning of success and what that looks like and how to integrate it, and just digging into, especially like, a lot of creatives listen to this podcast, and being a creative myself, it can be like a difficult topic, or maybe a topic that a lot of us avoid or have fear around, or maybe old tapes or something. So I'm really excited to hear your take because I always just resonate with what you talk about.
We
and
do.
um and I'm doing it a little different. I actually have questions in front of me, so if I look down, I have questions because there are certain things that I really am curious about, and I'm sure that you have lots of things to talk to us about. But if you want to tell the audience a little bit about you, give them a little background on who you are and what you do, if they
Okay.
haven't heard you before.
Perfect. So, Nicola Farnhill, I was born in the UK. I'm presently living and working in Spain. I've been here over 20 years now. And my work, I guess, has always been around helping other people, supporting other people in their healing process, in finding themselves, reconnecting from themselves. And that's basically why I created the name for my brand, which is Connected to Self. It's really strange, Pam, because I've been reflecting on that a lot lately, and I think at the time when I assigned the name, I wasn't very clear about why. These things just come to us, as we know, inspired action at times. And I've recently become really aware, and this ties in amazingly with the success theme that we're talking about today, and that's around the fact that we, in order to be successful, we have to know who we are. And quite often, that lack of success comes from the external when we're not connected to ourselves. So I'm trying to not go down that rabbit hole just yet. So I'm like all over the place, just picking my bits and pieces out. So basically, I am a qualified counsellor, therapist, and life coach. So I predominantly work with people now, I would say, that are hitting their I won't say midlife crisis, I would say their awakening. They no longer want to be living inauthentically, and really want to reconnect with themselves. So I do through online, in person, in groups. We also do some retreats here in Spain, which are just amazing with the weather. And yeah, and like we were saying earlier, my work is progressing, changing. The clients that I originally started off with are a lot different than what I'm working with now. So it's not just about my clients' growth that I find really important. It's also about my own growth as well, and I, really take a huge responsibility for that, as we were saying earlier. So I love doing the podcast, especially with you. We get to dig deep, and I think just kind of not only for me speak and share for others, but also connect with you personally, because we have lots of alignment, we have lots of fun and laugh a lot, and there's lots of resonance there. And I think, for creatives, it's so important that they have that place to land. I know that we share on Substack and things like that, but I think it's super important. It's something that I felt personally I couldn't do without. So I'm all about connecting people, all about helping to create communities, not just for creatives, for people that really want to connect to themselves and live authentically. So that's the core of what I do. It's psychology, it's mentally, physically, emotionally and spiritually based. So I use somatics, I use mindset stuff, the whole thing that I've accumulated over the last 30 years, really. So yeah, and I'm still open to learning more.
I love that. And I think you set such a great example of the fact that we do, even in the role that you play, helping others journey through different stages of their life. You do it too, and then that
Sure.
informs your work or influences your work or how you work with people or who you're working with. So I
Yeah,
think it's such a great example that you set
that's
and
so
showing it's
important.
normal.
It is normal. It's really funny because I had a client before we jumped on this today. And he was saying about how he was apprehensive when he first started doing the coaching with me. And he came in, he was sort of stiff and rigid and frightened. And he said one of the things he said was, it's so nice to be, because I work from home, so it's like so nice to be in a very relaxed environment. And one of the things that I was kind of told when I first started this work, I was a lot younger. I was like, I needed an office and I needed to display everything that I was qualified to do, etc. And whilst I think that works for some people, it certainly has never worked for me, because I've always kind of thought about what I needed and what about someone that maybe feels really vulnerable or disconnected really needs.
Mm,
So I think it's always good to be reflective. And I always find that when I'm speaking to my clients, that there's always things that I can apply to myself, always.
absolutely. And it kind of ties into like the thought of success, because a lot of times people feel like they need those documents around, or they need proof of their what they can do, or so like I guess one of the first things that I wanted to talk to you about was kind of defining success, especially kind of related to creative expression or personal knowledge. And like, what do you think of as like, what is success in your eyes?
Well, if it comes to being a creative, I guess, we're looking at more, for me personally, my writing. And I think there's two different parts, isn't there? There's the personal success where you're kind of feeling fulfilled about the work that you're doing. For me, what I'm writing about, which is obviously I write about my work, and how I can help people through that way. So I think there's that, and then there's the other side of it where it may be something that you want to pursue as a career, or maybe it's just something that you want to gain some financial success from, or maybe it's just something where a place where you feel successful because one person reads it and it makes a difference to one person. So so for me, it's very personal. It's extremely personal, and I think, I don't know whether it's important to define it or not. I think as far as my writing's concerned, as a creative, I had not an awareness of what I wanted to do with it on a successful level for a long time. And over the years, I've ghostwritten a book for a life coach that was actually autistic, and she just couldn't kind of put it together, so she recorded it. I did that for her. I found that very rewarding, and some elements of success, because it went on to be
Hmm.
published. So that was amazing. So I think success is completely personal to the individual. Some people may write or create art just for fun, but I think it can change. I think sometimes you can create something and then all of a sudden sometimes it's a funny thing, isn't it? Because it's like sometimes when you really want something to be successful, it doesn't happen. But yet, if you don't have any expectations of it, then someone can pick it up and read it or look at it or whatever, and all of a sudden, somebody's carrying it along, and it leads to success. So I think, yeah, on a kind of energetic level, I've never thought about it before, but on an energetic level, we might not want to be successful, but we may end up being successful. In the sense,
Yeah.
yeah, in the sense of being recognised, being seen, being heard.
That's interesting. I didn't really think about it in that form. I did some research reading about this just because it's a really like personal topic for me, and some of the things you talked about in the different forms of success, sort of, that it could be, it doesn't have to be like a finished product either that's successful. Like
No.
success could be tied to being curious or being consistent in something. And but I totally didn't think about the whole being seen. Like that's a whole other
Yeah.
avenue, and I didn't really think about that. And do you think that there are certain emotions that are tied to the thought of success? Like,
For sure. That said it all, didn't it? For sure. I think, quite often emotions are the driving force, and we're not always aware. It can be we need to be successful because someone else desires success for us or from us. So that quite often, when you go underneath a few layers, shows its face. That
so like
I
expectations, like,
Absolutely. And when it comes to creativity, as we know, when there's pressure behind it, the creative it kind of stops flowing.
right? And it's not
So
authentic. It's definitely not, it doesn't feel
absolutely,
good.
absolutely. It's really funny
Yeah.
because I was thinking earlier before we started around um, what you can apply this to any area, but if we're looking at creatives, what is more likely to create success, and that would be inspired action from feminine energy, and that comes from being connected to yourself.
So it kind of all just
So
comes back to that.
absolutely, that's the loop that I've been circling around all week because I had a huge moment of, I guess, being in my feminine, and inspired action came, and being very reflective along how quite often we either force it, so then we're coming from the masculine energy, the action, or we come from the feminine and then we're able to move it out into the world through the masculine energy. And again, that comes back to that first part of calling the success, which is the feminine energy having the inspired action. If it's not inspired action, then it's unlikely to be successful. If it is successful, it won't stick.
Interesting. I didn't really think about that either. You have such great insights that now, like, well, I'll leave this conversation and have to go like research
Sorry.
more. Yeah, right.
Pam's
Um,
already with her questions, like I know, and then I'm like, kind of, well, have you got a
no, I
question for
love
me?
it. It's awesome. One of the other things when I was looking up, just for my own knowledge, like the different types of success, or what you could think of as different types of success. Some of the things I read were success, like what you talked about earlier, that's seen or not seen. So something that's like outward, or if it's success for yourself,
Yeah,
private versus public
yeah,
things. Also, a lot of the things that I read were written and tied to maybe like messages that we got growing up of what success was, or something that's tied to money or income. And it was so prevalent. Like everything I was looking up, every post I was reading, had some connection to maybe like a more traditional way of looking at success that is tied to what you have or who you know or what you
yeah,
get to do. And I think that I don't know, like what's the word? Like reflecting or challenging, maybe challenging those old tapes. Like
hmm,
how do you get your own definition of success?
I think, again, it goes back to, I'm going to keep referring now, that connection to ourselves. I think when it comes to our childhoods, quite often, depending on what we experienced, there's that, quite often that moment when we maybe have been very uncomfortable with something, and then we make the decision that we can no longer trust ourselves or that we're comfortable in our bodies, and so we move our connection, our focus to the external. And I think at that point, that's when we start to lose that connection, where we're looking outside for that validation, for that acceptance, for that being seen and heard, instead of being able to, when we're comfortable in our own bodies, then we're not seeking that. So that could be that aligns with the personal success. And I think whichever way, if it's personal or if it's professional, it's external, what needs to happen is we need to know who we are. The only way to do that is through that connection. We have to be aware of the shadow, which is, where do we look for external seek validation, acceptance, love, belonging, which is a hard one because we're hardwired to belong. But when
Well, and now in the age of social media too, it's
oh
such a different, you and I have something to compare to, like
yeah,
before social
for
media,
sure,
but like for young people coming up in this now, like they don't really have that other option to
not at
think
all.
about.
And
Yeah.
if they're, you brought up with social media, but then you're also have experienced some painful events that have disconnected you from your authenticity, about your wants, needs, your identity, then it must be even harder. And I think that's why we've got what seems to be the consensus that there's more anxiety than ever before. There's more people using things for self-soothing,
Hmm.
because they're not able to stay connected to who they are. Not only stay there, but maintain it,
Right.
reconnect. I think it's so interesting, this topic today, because it's just what I've been circling all for the last week. Having some huge epiphanies in my own life, and but also some great answers, and I think for me, we have to be looking more at the spiritual element when it comes to
Mm.
success, for sure, for
And like,
sure.
what does that mean for you? What are you thinking about that?
For me, it means first of all being extremely clear about what makes me happy and what I need to grow from, not moving away from what I need to grow from and seeing that as being negative. But yeah, scheduling as much happiness and joyfulness and fun and childishness as possible, um, while at the same time being aware of where I'm looking out for things instead of reaching in for things. So again, being able to be very clear for me about when I feel like I should be doing something in my work, for my writing, for example, as opposed to when it comes from inspired action. And that comes from when I am meeting my own needs. When
And I
I'm not.
love how like it just comes back to that. Like every conversation that I've had with you comes back to not only trusting yourself but like relying on yourself, and I think that's such a powerful thing for people to take away, that it affects so many things.
Absolutely, and I think, it's like when I was unraveling this week, which I enjoyed greatly, I might add, and I will continue. One of the interesting things was the masculine and the feminine that led me back to spirituality. That, spirituality, connection to self, because, and then I really had that moment of, I realised now why I named the brand what it is, because it's the most important thing in our lives. The most important thing. If we are not connected to ourselves, self is source, God, spirit, energy, whatever you want to call it. If we haven't got that connection, then our lives are always going to feel unstable. They're always going to feel fragile, and we're then not going to be able to have that inspired action because we're not in spirit. Yeah.
Wow. I feel like it's such a simple thing that's not easy.
It is. That's what
You
I got
know?
on when I walked home. I was like that. This is so easy. I had to stop and with my phone and have my headphones on and stop and do a note on my phone in the middle of the kind of like the crossing across the
Yep.
road. I was like, oh, I need to write this down, and that was inspired action,
Yeah.
because when it was all coming together in my mind, I was thinking to myself, oh, I need to get this down, and that was the inspired action. I needed to write it down.
Yeah.
And that then led me to that moment of,
Mm.
look how this is flowing now. And I'd
Yeah.
had so
Unfortunately for me, it comes at bedtime, and then as we just talked about earlier, and then I'm up because I have the inspired action to I have to get it out and get it down because I'll
yeah,
forget if I
yeah,
don't capture it at that moment.
yeah, yeah. And I think that is, so if we're looking at the, what is a success, then yeah, we can
Hmm.
define it in so many different ways. But I think for me, whether it's personal or professional, whether it's just because it makes you happy, whether it's because you want to share something, whether it's we want to make a career out of it, you want to earn from it, it all comes back to the same thing, and that is, to be successful, you have to be aligned and connected with yourself. And that flowing energy, it's not sustainable long term. And I think that's what a lot of people find in business, don't they? They find that they go with the more masculine action energy, which is forcing, pushing, and yes, it's achievable with hours and with drive, but this feeling of success is very short lived,
Yeah.
and it
And not
does.
enjoyable.
No, the pleasure's not there. It's like, this was the hard slog. Whereas when it's through the connection to self, the inspired, it's not about the destination, it's about the journey, and that's what they say, don't they?
Yeah.
Like you say, it all comes back to the same thing.
Mm.
It's like,
And
if we
why do you think we dismiss our own work or worth, or why do we not
we
look at
listen to other people too
that?
much,
Mm.
we value other people's opinions too much. We don't. I think we're born trusting ourselves, and we know we are. And I think when we've not, especially as a child, we've not lived long enough to actually understand when things happen to us or things are said to us. Again, when we're sensitive, it can be something and nothing, but it hits us hard. Then we don't have that ability to work out that it's not personal, that it's about other people. And from that, we start to fragment. I think. I think that's what happens, and I think then
Yeah.
we just don't trust ourselves anymore. We move out of discernment and into, what do other people need from me, and how can I make other people happy, and how can I serve them in order for me to feel okay, or maybe for me not to feel what I'm feeling when I sit with myself.
And what is like the long-term effect of not acknowledging our successes and our wins and our accomplishments?
I think I think that the if we don't follow the path of who we are and what we should be doing, because of the disconnection, at some point it will no longer be ignored. And if it is ignored, then for me personally, we destroy ourselves. We destroy
Right, because it's
ourselves
got to come out
because we
somewhere.
absolutely. And if not, it just becomes energy that's stagnant, and we feel that stagnation. If we allow it to flow, then it's so easy. But yet we have a program. We have a program that says, when I was myself, that wasn't acceptable. That wasn't what someone else was looking for. And when you're a child, for example, then you need that to feel safe and to feel stable, and that's why we move away from ourselves, because we're looking for stability outside of ourselves, because when we're a child we can't give it to ourselves. Yeah.
And I think for me, sometimes there's so much forward movement that I don't take the time to sort of even look at what I did. You know, I as an example, so I finished writing a book and I sent it off to the publisher, and literally like that night I started writing the second book. And I
Right.
never really stopped to like say, "Wow, I wrote a book," you know, or like a pat on the back, or I don't know, just celebrate it. It was just like, okay, like the next thing and the next thing and the next thing, and you just keep moving forward. And for me, creatively, like I always have something going. So it's, you know, working with a therapist, like I've been able to slow down a little bit and look at what my accomplishments are, or look at things that I do as accomplishments, because sometimes I don't
Yeah.
even think of them as accomplishments. So I feel like learning like what to look for, or even just how to celebrate yourself
And that
is
is a
difficult for
success.
people.
Being able to do that is a success in itself, isn't it?
Right, yeah.
Because quite often, again with the external world, it's kind of we're surrounded by, even if you just look on Substack, we're surrounded by what you need to do, what you can do to do this, to achieve this, to change this. So there's constant information coming in that makes us question our processes and, well, maybe I can do it better this time and maybe I can go to this next level. And it's that constant, not just pressure, but information, which stops us from actually, taking stock and thinking, I did that really well. That was a success. Instead of what can I do better the next time? And again, when you have that strong, grounded connection to yourself, then you don't, you can discern what's right for you and sit with that instead of looking out and thinking, that, oh, I could have done it that way, instead of, I did it.
Right. And there was no integration. You know, it's all very like just go
On to
on
the
to the
next
next
thing.
thing, the next thing. And there's no
It's
stopping to
exhausting.
like,
And it's like, who said that we have to live that way?
right.
Why can success in life be just around being? Why is that not enough?
Yeah, that seems pretty successful to me. To just
I think
be.
that's the ultimate success.
Exactly. In your work, have you noticed like patterns that your clients have around success, or or accolades that are given them? Are there certain patterns that people follow?
I think again, it's like we've just said. It's around external. It's around that
Mhm.
being more attached to what's expected as opposed to attached to what we need as individuals. And I think when there's been that fragmentation, particularly through childhood trauma or just a painful event that's had a big impact, then there's that propensity to look outwards to see, what what can I do so that doesn't happen again? What can I do so that that person's not disappointed again, or so that I stay connected to this or that or this person or whatever. So again, it's being able to come back to yourself, I think,
Mhm.
and feel, as we said, successful just for being able to maintain that connection and not keep looking out. To I'm okay as things are. It doesn't matter what people say, but it's again we're hardwired. It's a survival technique to actually want to belong, and that belonging, unfortunately, is a part of also adopting other people's behaviours, beliefs. So we constantly, and the only way we can do that again is by by having some spiritual practices or just understanding how we can be successful through energy, I guess, through our own energy, meeting our own needs, creating that joy, allowing being aware of the flow. It's when the flow stops, isn't it, that things start to stagnate. So it's
Mhm.
about our flow state, and I think for me that's about knowing what gives us joy and doing it as much as possible, and
And I
not
love that.
attaching
Oh,
any success to it, not attaching anything to it.
yeah. It's a great redirect that it's not necessarily like task related. It's more, you know, energy related, I
What
guess.
gives us good energy? What gives us good energy? What makes us feel
Yeah.
free and happy and, you know, light? Those are the
Wow.
things. When we're in that, that's our natural state. But when we're forcing it, we're not in that natural state. And that's, to me, when success is very hard.
Hmm. Do you have ways that you personally sort of integrate your success, your feelings of accomplishment or success?
I think one of my most successful states is to be in my body as much as possible, to keep things as light as possible, and to be as childish as possible. Because adulting is very heavy at times, and um, yeah, so I think for me, the most important thing is discovering what lights you up, what gives you that lightness, what makes you not feel like you have to do something and that you want to do it by choice. That to me is when you get that inspired action. That to me is when success will come for sure.
And
It's a
it's oh, go
two
ahead.
part
Go ahead.
two part process. Yeah.
And it's the exact opposite of what we're told success needs to be, because we're told that there are certain like actions that you need to take, and there are certain, whatever milestones or goals you need to hit.
Yeah.
And this is the exact opposite of that.
Absolutely. And I think that's something that's being called for right now more than ever, to free people up, because people are not free. They're not able to be confident about their abilities to be successful from themselves.
Mm.
It has to be external, and it doesn't have to be external at all.
Wow. I think that's the key, and that's the like you just summed it all up. That's the gold right there.
That is exactly what it is. As you said, it's so simple, yet the outside world and what happens to us and not understanding ourselves drags us out all the time. All the time we're looking out. We don't need to look out, you know?
Are there some practices we can do to work, like to help people work on looking inward?
I think on a if you're working just on your own, on yourself without any help, I think the most important thing is to spend quiet time and to be in your body, to maybe ask yourself some questions around what makes you feel comfortable and uncomfortable that you're doing right now, how much you are aware of how much joy you're creating for yourself, and how much are you just waiting around for it to happen. um, yeah, I think the biggest one for me is to measure every day how much you've laughed and how happy you feel, because that's where the lightness comes, that's where the flow of energy comes, that's where the inspiration comes. So start there. If you're not working with anyone, just start there. Obviously for other people that feel more blocked, then I think it would be super helpful to work with someone and get to know what they have stopped doing because they feel like it's not acceptable from other people, what they're doing to gain external validation and acceptance from outside, as opposed to what they need to find from inside. How are they validating themselves? How are they accepting themselves? I think those are the main things, but I think, just noticing when you're happy and doing more of that, because that's when you're in spirit, that's when you get inspired. And then understanding when that inspired action comes, that inspired thoughts on creativity, for example, making sure that you follow through with the masculine, with the action, because sometimes people can be very creative and very inspired, but yet they've not got that masculine energy balance, so they're not able to put it out there. So in effect, I think the key is to balance the masculine and the feminine, being your joy, your lightness, so the inspired creativity comes, and then being able to move it out into the world through your masculine energy. Yeah, I think so.
That's
So
perfect.
easy.
That's
So
perfect.
easy.
No, I know. And it's also, I think it's good for people to remember that there's more than like one kind of therapy too. So, or, counseling or whatever kind of help you get, that, there are people like you that work in this realm and this way. And then there are people, if somebody finds somebody and they don't connect with them, or they don't, um, I don't know, it doesn't resonate, or they're not
Yeah,
hearing what they need, go to someone else.
absolutely.
And now with everything virtual, like, you have so many
So many options.
options.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you do, and I think it's so helpful to know that there's different people that work in different ways, and what one resonates with one doesn't resonate with the other, and that's absolutely fine.
Exactly.
And it may be that you work with one person for a while, and then you find out that that person can no longer offer you anymore, and then to move on to someone else. There's lots of different ways that we can discover, and it is again very personal. To each individual, it's something that needs to explore. But I think for me, if you're not looking for any help, then but you feel like you've got a block or within your success, or you're not able to move to the next level that you want to, then you need to look at where your life is balanced, for sure, where you're forcing it instead of allowing it to just come, because when we're in that state, then it's just the best feeling in the world, isn't it?
It is. Well, I have enjoyed taking this topic apart a little bit with
Me
you.
too.
And as always, I love talking to you. Is there anything else that you want to add that we didn't cover?
I don't think so. I'm going to be writing an article tomorrow on this, so that's going to be out there on Substack. And I'm going to be creating a 6 to 8 week course on identity, where I'm going to be looking at this in more detail, and explaining how people can actually move into this place, be in flow state more, balance the masculine and feminine, be more in spirit without feeling too woo woo and not grounded,
Yeah,
but keeping it real. So I'd love, if you would share that, Pam, and obviously anybody
absolutely.
listening. I just feel that we're in such an important time where the gateway is open to freeing ourselves up to being more inspired, more in spirit, and more free to live as we should be living, for sure. For sure.
Yeah.
So exciting.
Absolutely. I will put all your contact information in the show notes, and I will put links to all of your things that relate to this.
Thank
Absolutely.
you.
Definitely, people should reach out to you and follow along and get
I'm
some of your
excited.
good, lovely joy that you spread and honesty. And I thank you. Thank you for being here again. I'm sure if anybody has topics they want us to cover, they can also share that in the comments. That would be awesome.
Definitely.
Um, but yeah,
Definitely.
I love getting to chat with you.
Me too, Pam. Thank you so much. And as always, I'm so grateful for our alignment. It's so easy and such fun. And I don't know how many we've done now. Is this the third or the fourth? We just
I
keep
think it's like
going.
maybe the fourth. Yeah. It's
And I'm like,
awesome.
after a certain length of time, I'm like, I need to message Pam or you message me, and we just get together. And it's just so nice, so pleasurable. There's no kind of effort. Again, we're aligned, we're in spirit, we're taking inspired
Yeah.
action, and it's just amazing. Thank you so much. I love it. I really do.
Thank you. I'll talk to you soon.
Okay, take care.
During this conversation, the term success felt more like something fluid, something that changes shape depending on where you are, how you're paying attention, and what you're allowing yourself to notice. And I think that's the part that stayed with me the most, because so much of how we think about success is external. It's visible, it's measurable, it's something we can point to and say, there it is, or even compare it to something else. But in this conversation, it kept returning to something internal, something you feel before you can explain it, a sense of being in the right place with yourself, even briefly. And I started thinking about how that connects to creativity. Not creativity as output or what we make or how it's received by others, but creativity as a way of moving through the world, as a way of noticing when something feels aligned or when it doesn't. There's a kind of honesty in that, and also a kind of permission, because if success is something that can be felt, then it's also something that can be recognized in small, almost unremarkable moments. And maybe that's where this idea of balance comes in too. Not as something static or something that you achieve once and keep, but as something that's always adjusting. A movement between doing and allowing, between effort and something more intuitive, and noticing where you are inside of that. I think that's what I'm taking with me from this. Not a new definition of success, but a more personal relationship to it. One that leaves a little more room for listening and feeling, and for recognizing the moments that already feel like something meaningful, even if they don't look like anything from the outside. Thank you so much for spending time with me today. If you enjoyed this episode, subscribe for free and share it with a friend. It helps others find the show and grows our community. Remember, creativity is yours to define, there are no rules, and it's never too late. Until next time.